a strong word. I might hate it. Like, I might hate this book. I don't think I hate a book. Hello everyone, it's Fifi and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video, and if you're back, thank you for being here again. October was so long. Can I just say, it was incredibly long. I don't know what happened. I've forgotten more than half of the books that I've read, so please bear with me. October was just extremely, I don't know, it was fun. It was such a fun month, but so many things happened. So let's just get on with the video because I have so many books to talk about. I actually have 8 books to talk about, which is a lot. The most I've read in a month was 6, but this month I read 8, which is, you know, I never expected it. I think it's the opposite for me. When I'm busy, the more my mind and my body rebels against tasks and work. So when I have stuff to do, I just drop them and is like, okay, nope, I have to read. But when I have nothing to do, I don't read. Like, literally, I'm in a slump when I'm not busy. So, weird thing. Is anybody else also like that? No? Just me? Okay. Okay, first book I read in October, and this was one of my most anticipated reads of the year because I am obsessed with this series, and that is The Heart Principle by Helen Hoang. For those of you who don't know, The Heart Principle is actually the 3rd installment in a trilogy called The Kiss Quotient series by Helen Hoang. She is a Vietnamese-American author. I've been anticipating this book for the longest time because I was in love with The Kiss Quotient. It is probably one of my favorite reads this year. Really enjoyed that book. It was so funny, so relatable, so witty, and it was about, also educational for me because it was about a girl with Asperger's syndrome, or who is in the autistic spectrum. So I really learned a lot about autism with that book, and I know, you know, autism is a big, like a very broad subject, but I got a glimpse of what it's like to be a person within the autistic spectrum, and I really like that. It was such an educational time for me. I think what inspired Helen Hoang to write about people with Asperger's syndrome or within the autistic spectrum is she also has Asperger's syndrome, and her daughter as well. This book is about Anna, who is a violinist who went viral on YouTube. It was one of those like big YouTube moments where she didn't know she was gonna get famous. She just performed in this concert and her video blew up. She got really famous, but then after a while she got this bad case of artistic burnout and developed really bad anxiety, depression, and one day her doctor finally diagnosed her with Asperger's syndrome, or told her that she was, it was possible that she was within the autistic spectrum. Going to her love interest Quan, who we know from the previous books, because the series is essentially about 3 men, Michael, Kai, and Quan, so they're all related. Kai from the 2nd book is Quan's brother from the 3rd book, and Michael is their cousin, so they're all like one big Vietnamese family, and there are just different women protagonists as well. We've seen Quan from the previous books, and oh my god, I was looking forward to this book so much because of Quan. Like, everybody in this fandom was just like, we want the Quan story, we love Quan, Quan is everything, and here is the Quan book. And in The Heart Principle, Quan, we see him, he's tackling post-cancer like stuff. So he's a cancer survivor, but he's going through like a lot of personal stuff on his own, and then he meets Anna. I forgot to mention how they met, so I think that's the most important part of the story. Anna has a boyfriend, and he goes up to her and is like, hey, before we settle down, I kind of want to see other people and check if this is it for me, like if you're it for me. And his plan for figuring out if Anna is the one is to be in an open relationship, see other people, sleep with other women, blah 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 blah. And as asshole boyfriends go, he didn't expect Anna to do the same. He didn't expect her to see other people because, you know, personally he knew that she's not the type of person to see other guys and to put herself out there. You know, he knew she wouldn't do it. So, you know, as a stubborn main protagonist, Anna was like, excuse me, if you get to see other women and sleep with other women, I get to do that too. She didn't want to, but she had to do what she had to do. So she went on an app, met Quan, They met up, sparks flew, everything. That is the whole gist of the story, basically. Now, what are our thoughts? How did this book make me feel? Before this book came out, I saw people getting sent arcs of the book, and you know, a lot of booktubers and TikTok, like book talkers, saying this is the best kiss quotient book yet, and this might be it. Like, Kwan's story might be the best out of all of them. Okay, my thing about this is I didn't hate it. I just felt a teeny tiny bit scammed. I don't know, it was advertised as kind of like a romantic comedy, and I know Helen Hoang eventually posted on her Instagram that it's not gonna be like The Kiss Quotient and The Bride Test. It's gonna be super different, super emotional, and a lot about mental health and, you know, other stuff, not just romance. Coming from The Kiss Quotient and The Bride Test, you kind of expect something within the same spectrum of the first two books. Like, the author's note at the end of the book did say that this is more of a memoir than anything, because Helen Hoang really went through a lot when she was taking care of, I think, her father when he got COVID, or I think a family member when he got sick. And a lot of the plot in the book was about Anna taking care of her father when he was paralyzed and he couldn't move his anything, like the whole 9 yards. They were changing his diapers, feeding him, feeding tubes, everything. So it was like a severe sickness. He was bedridden and everything. Yeah, a big chunk of the book revolved around that. And Helen Hoang said that it really was more of a memoir than anything. She wrote about herself, her experiences, which is why in a really touching dedication at the start of the book, she gave it to all the caregivers out there, especially medical professionals, during the COVID-19 pandemic, which is very sweet, very touching. It is an ode to health workers and medical frontliners and caregivers. And that's wonderful, you know, that's amazing. And a lot of the book was about empathy and family and sacrifice. We love that. It was well written. However, I feel like she took Kwan's story and tried to merge these two things that she wanted to do. She wanted to write about her experiences, and she wanted to, you know, conclude the Kiss Quotient trilogy with Kwan, but we barely saw Kwan. You know what I mean? Like, it's about Kwan essentially. Like, the fans are expecting Kwan, like a big chunk to be about Kwan in the story, but we didn't get that, and which kind of left me a bit blindsided, because we were expecting this whole like conclusion that was fun. And I mean, it was fun, but it was a lot sad. Like, it was very, very sad. It made me cry. It made me really, like, it's such a heavy read, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there is absolutely nothing wrong with what Helen Hoang wrote. It's just that I feel like it could have been done in a completely different book. Like, she could have written this not for this trilogy, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I just felt a bit disappointed. I don't want to say disappointed, but yeah, I was a bit disappointed. This is definitely maybe my second or third favorite. I don't know. Kiss Quotient is definitely still up there. I think it's just more of there wasn't a continuity of expectations, because the first two books had a standard. Like, this is a romantic comedy. This is what the feel is like. This is what you're supposed to get from these books. It's a romance. It's fun. But this one is not. Like, the romance completely took a backseat. You know, and that's fine. But as a romance trilogy, it shouldn't. So, that's just my 2 cents. Next book. Oh dear God. The next book is something I read for our book club. I'm doing this book club with my best friend Theola, and we chose The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. Theola and I wanted something witchy, maybe something fantasy, dark, I don't know, something Halloween related. And I mean, it's called The Nature of Witches, so we were drawn to it. The cover is gorgeous. It's about witches. Sadly, I wanted something entirely not this. Let me tell you what it's about first before I get ahead of myself. So we follow Clara, who is a witch, and in this world the magic system is seasonal. So there are winter, spring, summer, and autumn witches, and each witch gets their power during each season. So they're strongest when their season is present. But of course, our main girl Clara is not like other girls. She is not just a one-season witch, but she is all 4-season witch, which makes her an ever witch. That's what you call a witch who has the power of all 4 seasons. And an ever witch comes like every 100 years. She is a very rare specimen, therefore she is special, therefore she is not like other girls. What was actually super interesting about this book is their powers, since they're tied to the seasons, of course it's tied to the climate. The actual purpose of witches in the world, like on Earth, is to stabilize the climate and protect the atmosphere. So it's very tied to the environment, to global warming, and of course, because now we have so many corporations, humans are destroying the planet, blah blah blah, the atmosphere is very, very unstable, therefore making it harder for witches to keep balance up in the air. I found this concept really, really cool. However, everything else, not cool. A strong word, I might hate it. Like, I might hate this book. I don't think I hate a book. I don't know. Let me think about it if I hate it. But I just don't like this. It's a 1 star. It's a 1 star for me. Hear me out, hear me out, hear me out. First of all, Clara as a main character sucked. Bad. Hated her. She was the world's most self-deprecating MC I have ever read in my entire life. And I've read a lot of self-deprecating MCs on Wattpad, on AO3, on fanfic.net, on Tumblr, on books, everything. But her, she came out of a really badly written Wattpad book. The writing was also very not great. I was not fond of the writing. It was very inconsistent. There were a lot of plot holes. There were a lot of things that just didn't make sense, and it's simplistic writing per se, but I don't know. There's a difference between simplistic writing and bad writing. So there is also a love story. So there's this boy named Sung. He's like this really cute Asian boy that just comes out of nowhere and is like, I think he's tasked to train her with her powers. He comes from like a different school and he arrives in the school, so he's this new kid, and I feel like the book was written in a way that I was supposed to like him and I was supposed to appreciate their relationship together, but there was no build-up. Like, there was nothing. Clara was just all up in her head or ass. It was a chore to get through. A chore. I'm not even joking. I wanted to DNF this book so bad, but one day it was so traffic on my way home from work that I was just like, okay, you know what? I can listen to the audiobook. You know, I won't lose anything. I did lose a lot of things. I lost a lot of brain cells. I lost a lot of brain cells and it was not fun. So it's gone. Bye. Goodbye, nature of witches. However, the next book that I read definitely more than enough made up for the nature of witches. And I've actually been reading this book for the past 3 months. Like, I didn't start this month, I started this in August. It's just one of those books where you can't rush. Like, it has to be taken in increments because there's so many things going on, and not in a bad way, in a completely beautiful way. And I am very, very confident to say that this is now one of my favorite books, not just of the year, but of all time. And that is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafon. We follow Daniel, who is this son of a bookshop owner, and on his 10th or 11th birthday, his father took him to this place called the Cemetery of Forgotten Books in the heart of Barcelona. Obviously, it's a place where books that have not been read for a long time or books that are forgotten have been stored, and it's just this humongous labyrinth of books and piles of stories. It's everybody's dream, basically, here in the booktube realm. For the first time he visited the Cemetery of Forgotten Books, his dad told him to pick one book to take home with him, and this book he has to protect for the rest of his life, because it's his, you know, it's his like initiation into this knowledge of the cemetery forgotten books. So he went through thousands of books in the cemetery and came across this book called The Shadow of the Wind by the author Julian Carax. So Daniel takes this book home, reads it in one night, and becomes obsessed with the book, that he decides to look for more works of Julian Carax because he's just enamored by this story and wants to read more stories by the author. But then eventually, after searching and searching and searching, he finds out that all of Julian Carax's books have been burned and destroyed, and his book is the only one existing. Like, he has the last copy, possibly the last copy of a Julian Carax book. The story basically is us going with Daniel through this like investigation and journey into finding out what happened to Julian Carax, who is Julian Carax, and why is like there's this mysterious person burning his books. And that's essentially all I can say about the book, because a lot of like there's so many things that happen. Like, it is just one of those Spanish books that takes 500, 600 pages. This is 500 pages. I see a lot of people compare this to 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and I have not read that book, but it also tackles magical realism. What drew me to this is because it's more of like a murder mystery type of thing. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of things to solve. So if you look at my book, I treated it like a detective case. I kid you not. I have to have a pencil with me when I read this book because I underline and encircle and take notes every like 3 pages. All of the characters in Shadow of the Wind are so lovable. The writing is more of a meandering, a lot of artistic prose. When it comes to it, it's a mix of both atmospheric and plot heavy. So I really, really loved the plot of this one. I think it's because it's really a mystery story or a mystery plot that I really loved it. It really drew me in. I loved it. It is one of my favorite books today. And also I think, sorry, I'm saying so much about this book, it's really one of my favorites. I also think it's because it's set in one of my favorite cities in the world, Barcelona. I love that city so much. It's one of my favorite cities ever, if not my favorite city already. But Barcelona is really such a beautiful place. I feel like when you go to Barcelona, you need to pick up this book and read it while you're there, because it's just like, you will see everything. Like, paint the picture in front of you. And at the end of the book, there's actually a map where you can tour Barcelona through the eyes of Shadow of the Wind, and I can't wait to do that. Like, there is this map and you can just walk through all of the places mentioned in the book and just replay the scenes in your head, and it's amazing. I can't wait to do that. I can't wait to go back to Barcelona and do the same thing. Read The Shadow of the Wind, one of my favorite books of all time. I suggest don't rush it. Take your time. Really, like, absorb everything because it's so beautiful. That's it. Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafon. So the next book I read is The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren, and Christina Lauren wrote one of my favorite romance novels ever, which is The Unhoneymooners, and it's an enemies to lovers trope thing. The Soulmate Equation is not an enemies to lovers. I don't think they were technically enemies. I mean, they didn't like each other at first, but the enemies to lovers wasn't the crux of the story. It's more of a fake dating trope with a single parent trope. So I really, really love the single parent trope. It's one of my favorite tropes. This one is about an app. So there's this genetic dating app where it's not just like Tinder or Bumble. They take your spit and then they kind of study your genetics, like your body composition, your DNA, whatever, and then they look for a person who is genetically compatible with you. And our main couple, I forgot their names, they found out that they were 98% genetically compatible, and the closest that the company has ever gotten to a 100 was a 93. So this was so groundbreaking for the company that they were like, okay, try to get to know each other and see if this is working, because it says you're 98% genetically compatible. So let's see, you know, test it out, go on a few dates, maybe sleep together, and you never know what will happen. I had a lot of fun reading this book. It was just pure feel good, but it's not the most like impactful story. It's easily forgettable. When I finished it, I enjoyed it, gave it like a 3.5 stars, but then after a few days I've forgotten about it, so I kind of botched it down to 3 stars because I was like, oh, okay, this is an easily forgettable story. So yeah, I don't have much thoughts about it. It's okay. I don't think I'd read it again, maybe, if, you know, I feel like it, but not really. Yeah, no. Okay, 5th book, and this is one of my favorite books this month, and that is Blue Iris by Mary Oliver, and this is a poems and essays collection. I did a vlog about this 2 videos before this, so if you haven't seen that yet, please check it out. It is somewhere above there. Mary Oliver is known for her free verse poetry. I've been wanting to get into poetry, like genuinely. I've been wanting to read poetry, but I just have been feeling too dumb for it. When I pick up a poem, I'm like, I can't understand this. I don't know what this means. I can't dissect this. So I've been trying to research on beginner-friendly free verse poetry for the past few months, but my friend Erica really recommended Mary Oliver. Reading Mary Oliver poetry makes me feel seen, heard, understood, even if it's entirely about something that I have no experience in. She's writing about wheat fields, and I feel like she understands me as a person. She's writing about sunflowers, and I feel like she knows me personally. She writes about rice, and I feel like she is calling me out. The poems are titled Plants and Flowers, so there's lilies, poppies, sunflowers. There's also Morning at Blackwater, Roses, Blue Iris. There's this poem called Some Questions You Might Ask. One of my favorite poems in this book. I would read it to you, but this like video will get too long. I'll just place it right here and let you pause and read it. It's one of my favorite poems in this whole book. And there are a few essays also that are extremely wonderful. So if you are also like me who wants to get into poetry but don't know where to start, I highly suggest Mary Oliver. Very accessible, very simple writing, free verse, but also very deep and reflective and beautiful. Mary Oliver. That's the way to go. Next book, we have, oh my god, this book is from the library of Miss Julia Delgado. If you haven't subscribed to Julia, please go subscribe to her. She has recommended this book so many times, and I finally picked it up. And of course, being a Julia Delgado book, you have to be an enemies to lovers book because she is the enemies to lovers queen. And that is Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel Lynn Solomon. Wow, guys, I never thought I would be smitten over a high school romance today. This still tugged at my heartstrings, made me laugh, made me cry, was angsty enough for me to love. It's just your typical high school enemies to lovers academic rival story that is so endearing and actually pretty nostalgic, which is ridiculous because I've never had a boyfriend in high school, so I don't know what I'm feeling nostalgic about. Maybe it's just the youth and the experience of being young in high school. Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, we follow, what are their names? Rowan and Neil, who are academic rivals. They have been going up on each other's throats for the past 4 years of high school, and they were actually running after valedictorian. And unfortunately, Neil is the one who gets valedictorian. Rowan was extremely upset. Rowan is the girl. She is our main character. She narrates the entire book in first person. She wants to be a romance author. And this is one of the quirky, beautiful things I love about this book because it tackles loving romance and romance as a genre for women and written for women. Rowan has been very ashamed of her loving romance and her wanting to be a romance author because her parents are writers and they think romance is not a genre. Her friends think that romance is trash. So I felt very seen. I think I just have this thing for stories about pursuing dreams and tackling about anxieties of the unknown, about the future, because I'm currently in that headspace right now. So I, like, even if she is from high school going to college, I still felt for her and felt very related to what she was going through as a high school graduate entering college, not knowing what she wanted to be, and, you know, who didn't know how to navigate the world by herself. It was a wonderful time. I love this book. So thank you so much, Julia, for suggesting this. It's such a cute, mundane story. And it's always the mundane stories that make the most impact on you because it's the most relatable. Okay, we're on our second to the last book, and this is also one of my favorite reads this month, unexpectedly, because I didn't think I would love this book as much as I do love it, and that is Sweet Filthy Boy by Christina Lauren. And this is my second Christina Lauren this month. I've read a total of 3 Christina Laurens in the span of this year, and I feel like I want to binge more because it's just so fun to read, so accessible, so light, and something that you just peruse through really quickly if you just want a quick, like, romance fix. Christina Lauren is your best bet. And this is one of their older ones, which I didn't expect to love because, of course, older romance books tend to be, you know, a bit politically, socially insensitive. There are a bit, like, problematic tropes within the book. But Sweet Filthy Boy was surprisingly sweet and extremely filthy. Warning that yes, this is a smutty book, like extremely smutty. There was so much smut that I was kind of taken aback, but you know, I can't complain. I loved it. So Sweet Filthy Boy is about, what is her name? Mia, who is a college graduate, so a bit more relatable to me. And she goes to Vegas with her friends for one weekend to celebrate graduation before she goes to Boston for her business studies. And in Vegas, she meets this French man named Ansel, and they end up having a one-night stand. Because the one-night stand was so intense and they kind of developed this amazing chemistry together, she decides very impulsively to follow him to France. And that's it. That's what it's about. Of course, they develop feelings. They uncover skeletons in each other's closets. Like, things happen, but that's the gist of it. They fall in love. It's a typical romance, and what I really loved about this one, again, I think is the relatability of it. I'm not a fresh graduate, but I have graduated in recent years, and the whole concept of, you know, finding yourself after school and navigating yourself, or navigating through the world on your own, not knowing which path you want to take. Mia didn't really want to go to business school. She was just forced by her father. She is a dancer, and she was in this really big accident a few years ago which made her stop dancing. Her dad forced her to go to business school, but she really wants to be a dancer, so it just tugged at me. I really loved this book. It's one of those sana all books where you're just really jealous and you just want this to happen to you. Like, you want to meet a cute guy, fly to France, spend months with him. Like, it was ridiculous because she spent months with this guy, and she had money, which was so unrealistic. And I know it should throw me off how unrealistic it is, because she said she was living off of her savings because she didn't want to get any money from the guy. But yeah, Sweet Filthy Boy, love this book. I would recommend it. I've been seeing the reviews on Goodreads. They're not so great, but I just want to find one person who likes this book as much as I do and talk about it with that person. So if you're that person, please let me know. I just want to talk about it. It's fun. Such a fun book. So, the last book that I read this month, and one of my anticipated books of the year, also a book that I just finished today, is dun, 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 Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. I've mentioned before in a video that this is my favorite cover. It is so unbelievably gorgeous. It is by this artist from, I found her on Instagram. So Six Crimson Cranes is set in a magical world completely made up. The magical world of Kyoto. That's a country. Magic exists in the country. So there's sorcerers, demons, dragons. Our protagonist, Shiori, she is the girl in the cover. Beautiful Shiori. She is the youngest of 7 children, and she has 6 older brothers. And her father is the emperor of Kyoto, which makes her the princess and the only princess of Kyoto. Their mother died when they were very young, and now they have a stepmother called Raikama. And the story essentially is Shiori discovering that she has magic, but magic is forbidden in Kyoto. So people who have magic are usually banished to this mountain or just completely exiled from the country because it's seen as a dangerous thing to have or to possess. So when Shiori finds out that she has magic, she gets scared and keeps it to herself. But then she meets this dragon, Seryu, and he teaches her how to practice her magic and hone her skills. But then one day, her stepmother Raikama finds out that she has magic and exiles Shiori from the country and also turns her brothers into cranes. It's funny because in the story, Raikama curses them, like her and her brothers. She puts a bowl, like a wooden bowl, like a soup bowl, on top of Shiori's head so that it's just her nose and mouth that are seen. Her eyes are completely covered, and it's for people not to recognize her. Shiori can't speak. Every time she speaks a word, one of her brothers will die. And basically, her mission is to get rid of this curse, turn her brothers back into humans, and defeat Raikama, her evil stepmother. I didn't particularly love it. So in my humble opinion, I feel like this is categorized as YA on Goodreads, but I feel like this is for the younger YA, or maybe middle grade to YA. And that's not the reason why I didn't like it. I mean, I like Percy Jackson, and Percy Jackson is essentially middle grade. To me, everything is here. The concept, the storyline, the characters, everything is there. Like, all the ingredients for it to be a wonderful story is here. It's just the writing that threw me completely off. And the execution of scenes, I feel like, weren't super great. I was reading reviews of this on Goodreads a while ago, and there was this one review that said, this was beautiful, but it just lacks depth. And I feel like that summarizes everything I think about this book. It just lacks depth, and the writing really could have had more editing. That's such a strong, bold thing of me to say. I'm no writer. As a reader, I feel like the storyline was there. The things that were happening were what I would have wanted to happen. It's just the execution of how the scene was written and how the sequence of events was broken down. The writing made me dislike her main character, Shiori, which is this beautiful girl in the cover. A lot of the times I was very annoyed with her. Shiori has this bird called Kiki, like this paper bird, because part of Shiori's magic is she can bring stuff to life. So she folded a paper crane and she brought the paper crane to life. And that paper crane became her best friend. Kiki was annoying as hell. I don't know what anybody's saying about Kiki, but I hated that bird. Yeah, I was kind of sad that I didn't love this as much as I wanted to love it. As I'm assuming with the ending, there is going to be a sequel. I don't know if it's going to be a duology or like a whole series. And I don't know if I want to read the second one. The stepmother's plot, I loved her. She's my favorite character in the whole book, the evil stepmother. Love her. Raikama, bias. She's my bias. If the second book's cover is as beautiful as this, maybe I can be convinced. You know, it's up to the cover jacket now to convince me to read the book. And we're done! Oh my gosh, just in time. The sky is darkening already. It is just 4:30. But yeah, that's it for this video, guys. I hope you pick up some of these books and let me know what you think. What have you read in October? Please let me know. Let's talk books. You know, I reply to your messages on Instagram. Thank you so much to the people who have been messaging me personally on Goodreads and on Instagram. I love you guys. You are the best to talk to. Thank you so much for swinging by my channel. Good afternoon, good night, good morning. I'll see you in my next video. Mwah. Adios.